Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It all depends on what time you listen to me. Today we are going to talk about the concept of Pedoland. I would like us to wrap up with the issue of mass trafficking and the involvement of the global elite. This elite, which is exposed only according to the needs of the most gluttonous of the world. I'm going to show you that the global criminal network system on the MK Ultra is a doubt deal to deal with. You have to go do your research because it is so huge that one lifetime will not be enough to dismantle and expose for you what the current world government has prepared to manipulate you. Today I take a small piece of the big rail to try to open a new breach of knowledge for you. The Jacques Boutier case concerns a wealthy French businessman imprisoned since May 2022 for rape, sexual assault, pimping, and in particular on minors in France and Morocco, as well as for possession of child pornography videos, abuse of corporate assets, concealment, and money laundering in an organized gang. But as you will see here, it is just an organized joke to make us believe that we are finally punishing someone. They have to sacrifice someone from time to time, right?
One of the richest men in France is in prison. Indicted, Jacques Bouthier, grand patron of the insurance company ASA 2000, accused of trafficking in human beings, rape of minors. He would have retained teenagers from the age of 14, and when these young girls wanted to leave, he asked them to find replacements.
Yet, nothing predestined little Jacques to become like that. Jacques Boutier was born on March 10, 1947 in the 10th arrondissement of Paris. Self-taught, he did not study. He starts quickly by working in a company selling and transporting oil. At the age of 28, he founded and managed it ASU 2000. The beginnings were very modest, and the company was housed in a bungalow in Rosny-sous-Bois, but the development is then dazzling. In 2017, he bought the Financer network and became a bank loan broker. In January 2022, the group takes the name of Villavey Group. Jacques Boutier is one of the leading insurance brokers and also since 2005, one of the top 5,000 fortunes in France. He owns many businesses, particularly around the sale of life insurance. In 2020, his assets amounted to 1,016 million euros. His fortune is evaluated by the magazine Challenges at 1,000 million euros in 2007. An evaluation which drops to 60 million in 2009 to be at its maximum in 2019 at 1,070 million. That year he occupies the 4,070th place in the ranking of wealthy French people. In 2020, it is 1,060 million and it occupies the 487th place of this list. This fortune is mainly constituted by the holding of 90% of ASU 2000 and by taking positions in the brokerage of real estate loans, an activity in which he began to diversify in 2015. The system, which I call the Pedoland system, is that of the world or the planet of criminal child traffickers. This system legislates and employs MK Ultra methods to affect human consciousness. So for Jacques Boutier, we begin to discover his escapades from March 15, 2022 last. In fact, a 22-year-old young woman comes to file a complaint at the police station in the 90th arrondissement of Paris. She accuses Jacques Boutier of rape since 2016. He would have made her captive in one of his apartments in the Paris region. Aged 16 and homeless when they made contact, the young woman was sequestered in an apartment in Noisy-le-Sec. Jacques Boutier was imprisoned and indicted on May 21, 2022, with 5 other people in an investigation for trafficking in minor human beings, rape of minors, and participation in a criminal association with a view to committing kidnapping or kidnapping in organized gang. He will also have forcibly dragged the first complainant to libertine parties in the Paris region. Having become too old in her eyes, she would have been commissioned to find herself a new young woman, a 14-year-old Romanian girl who lived in a squat would therefore have replaced her. The complainant would have managed to film them both in bed, then would have entrusted the video to the investigators. The video is just over a minute long, but looks very incriminating. So what I always find to be the hex is that with these guys, life is like in the movies. As soon as you have compromising information on the world's good thinkers and the elite, they make you disappear or shoot you down. So the victims must submit and never dare to speak. And this is the whole trap of the MK Ultra manipulation. And you will soon understand why. Jacques Boutier would have tried to set up a team to recover the video, to kidnap the young woman and evacuate her outside France. This team would include several police officers or ex-police officers. According to the newspaper Le Monde, several people, according to West France, his wife, 2 employees of his company, a young woman close to the complainant, as well as a former gendarme member of the GIGN. Do you see the horror of the case? He does business with his wife, and that's because she doesn't want to lose the advantages of being this man's wife. She's in altered mind mood. My personal survival, despite all the things I see, besides I participated in it too. It is often, unfortunately, what the spouses of these sickos say to each other. And the other factor is that they succeed in getting the police services to carry out their shenanigans, a sign that the police are really involved, therefore the governments.
According to our info, 7 young girls would have experienced the horror, but there is only one complaint for the moment. According to our info, 7 young girls would have experienced the horror, but there is only one complaint for the moment.
Yes, it is indeed to participate in an extraction of the truth, what the law allows us to do. Our experience, and especially the multiplicity of files and situations that we have at the association and in our law firms, has enabled us to understand the mechanisms of predation, which are rather identical regardless of the environments in which they are expressed. An investigating magistrate will have this type of case 1 or 2 files like that over a year, over 2 years, over 10 years. For us, it's our daily life, so there are mechanisms for reading, psychological and psychiatric expertise, hearings that are a little more advanced that allow us to make requests for acts that are a little more advanced. Now, in order to fully understand this process, we will above all ask ourselves about the origin of these young girls. We have for information delivered by way of media of a young girl of 14 years who would have been recovered in a squat. At 14, if you are in a squat, you no longer have legal representatives, you should be under the protection of justice, this is called child welfare, or you are minor foreigners and isolated and there is a system of protection. It is also to find out how these young women, young girls, could have been in such a situation of abandonment, of non-protection, and who serves behind a certain number of predators.
According to our information on RTL, these young captive girls are either undocumented minors or runaways, in any case adolescents who have broken with society. In the cases that you usually defend, are these profiles the ones that come up?
Yes, we have a lot of prostitution networks which are in the process of being updated, and in particular Saint of the Homes of the Social Assistance of the Childhood, that is to say the rupture of support on the paths of the child, for several years child welfare, breaks that will take place at 13 to 14 years old. Minors who are going to flee, educational teams who are having difficulty following them. It is after minors who will fall into the hands of either other minors or young adults who will go into prostitution. This is a phenomenon that is quite well known, particularly in certain departments and cities in France and in the Paris region. Now what is less revealed to the eyes of the public, but which remains a reality, which is that of these networks there, but in the highest spheres, I would say financial, political and others of our country. And that's what comes to reveal this case a little.
This case does indeed reveal this system of predation, but this time in the upper echelons, but this time in a field of luxury where wealth is opulent. One wonders how this big boss managed to approach his teenage girls, to constrain them. Talk to you about mechanisms that are often mine. What is the mechanic? Is it a financial constraint? A harvester like that seems to be the case in this case.
Yes, you still have the role of the beater, it's a form of moral guarantee, it's to go see another young girl or young woman and say to her, here, this man brought me this level of life, such source of affection, and such it is a form of guarantee that nothing bad will happen behind. This is the role of a harvester. They are also harvesters that we could see in the Rather Epstein section, something that was publicized some 1 year ago in France. These are men who, through financial power, will be able to have a certain number of little hands who will work and who will dilute the visibility of a network.
It means that for you two today, the detention of Jacques Bouthier, we know that he has considerable means, he is 75 years old, for aught that you judge, despite his age, his detention justified because with such sums of money he can lobby. We know he tried visiblement to set up a team that tried to kidnap the girl who exposed this affair.
You have the answer to your question, that is to say that he effectively has the human network and the financial means, the power to silence any witness, to make any evidence disappear. There is also in one of his security agents who would have intervened, it is said through the press, that he is a former member of the GIGN. This is to say that he has access to a level of professionalism that is quite extraordinary, and therefore to a level of protection and erasure of data. These are also things that we know and that we find difficult to object in the files. You have the answer to your question, that is to say that he effectively has the human network and the financial means, the power to silence any witness, to make any evidence disappear. There is also in one of his security agents who would have intervened, it is said through the press, that he is a former member of the GIGN. This is to say that he has access to a level of professionalism that is quite extraordinary, and therefore to a level of protection and erasure of data. These are also things that we know and that we find difficult to object in the files.
It is a case that marks Master Grimaud. You explain to us that the mechanisms of predation are often the same as you are somewhere used to this kind of file, but for the general public it is significant, because slavery treats it, it seems, from another time. What you are telling us is that it exists, that it is a current reality.
Yes, it is the taboo of taboos, that is to say that talking about sexual slavery, human trafficking, is in a way talking about a network. It is now the biggest taboo that we now have in France. It refers to media affairs from more than 20 years ago which traumatized France enough. The investigating magistrates tell us that as soon as we start with the theme of human trafficking, they refuse to do so, because it requires colossal means of investigation. That these are extremely complicated approach and surveillance techniques. For the past 1 or 2 years, the penal policy has really focused on cases of prostitution of minors. But on cases like this, we touch on names, financial and other spheres that are more complicated.
Last question, this case, it also shows that one can be sequestrated without a lock and key lock because the victim who gave the alert had a certain freedom of movement, she was not locked up.
The worst prison is the psychological one, and many people have understood that. No need to put a key on a door, just need to put it in the mind of the person you are holding. This key can be physical threats, emotional blackmail, financial blackmail. You take a young girl or a young woman who has come from nowhere, breaking away from everyone, and without any landmarks. Sometimes all she needs is a roof, a little attention, whatever the violence, for her to have more than she had outside.
As you see and heard, it's predation, and when you go to mainstream media like Daily News, The Sun or Le Monde, you can read that it's like we still want to question that. The tone used is one of supposition. We give you the impression that for several years, 7 young women, minors or young adults who perhaps also have been captives in the apartment and would perhaps have been sexual slaves for Jacques Boutier, and that perhaps the latter would have set up a global system of sexual predation, in particular including predations during his travels in Morocco. The police may have discovered child pornography files in his home, but no. The investigations carried out by the French police now aim to measure the extent of a possible system of human trafficking. And these networks exist and are all linked to each other. It's not just about these jacks having money and stuff. It is deeper than that. Several young girls followed one another in his apartment, intended for sexual relations with the captives. He even offered 4,000 euros to one of them to give him her virginity. Jacques Boutier was even interested in recruiting very young girls, from 8 to 11 years old, up to 14 years old, no more, according to the one of the captives. Many people testify to the sexist actions and attacks of Jacques Boutier for years. His reputation was known. Fickle, greedy, follower of the right of Seigneur. The women in his company were thus constantly harassed and worked in a climate of terror. Testimonies and complaints accumulate and seem to demonstrate global sexual harassment. These actions were unfortunately known to many people in the company, at all levels of responsibility, who said nothing, Jacques Boutier being, according to an employee, covered at all levels of the hierarchy. On June 7, 2022, 2 new testimonies evoked the extent of the harassment and a Boutier system. We are talking of a Boutier system, and that is the characteristic of Pedoland. We know what you are doing. We complain about you, and everyone kicks in touch. Okay, let's talk about Morocco. Several complaints follow one another in Morocco, in particular in Tangier, and evoke a behavior and a toxic and neocolonial system. On June 5, the Moroccan Association for the Rights of Victims, AMDV, launched an appeal to the victims, 6 young women. Then decide to file the complaint against the French boss and 12 employees of the Villavic Group. On June 17, 4 young Moroccan women denounced their dismissal, which they consider abusive after having refused to yield to harassment and blackmail by Jacques Boutier and his accomplices among the managers of the company between 2018 and 2022 in a personal context of social precariousness. They filed a complaint for trafficking in human beings, sexual harassment, and verbal and moral violence. In particular, in several Moroccan media from May 2022. These alleged victims declare at the end of June that they are undergoing a campaign of intimidation and denigration from company officials. The case reveals the sexual harassment suffered by many young women working in the call center. 6 collaborators of Jacques Boutier are brought before an examining magistrate in Morocco at the beginning of July following these complaints. Because yes, when a powerful member of a system grows in this way, he becomes a formidable predator who influences other males to behave like him in order to survive, because for many, losing a job becomes a real phobia. His collaborators in Morocco and France are accused of having recruited and psychologically prepared girls for arrival of Jacques Boutier. That's mental control, MK Ultra. We put you in a condition against will to accept what you should never have accepted. The pill used to be physical. Now it is invisible, just based on a series of words and beliefs that are communicated to you quickly and in a pattern of fake appearances. 5 of them are taken into custody. On July 17, 2 new men are indicted on charges of human trafficking and sexual harassment. Mid-August, the lawyers seized the investigating judge of Tangier with the aim of initiating a rogatory commission in France on a criminal plan. Writer Taha Ben-Jelloun writes, "It's like being in the jungle where this guy behaved like a predator, thinking he could do anything in a country whose laws and justice he despised." You will surely wonder why I always take France or the United States as an example to talk about the Pandora box. Let me just say that these 2 countries are the fifth of Pedoland. This is where the epicenter of the Pedoland logic lies. People always refuse to see reality in the face, but I assure you, even if you hide, you will be fleshed out. Look, Boutier even boasted of having many contacts in the police, and then a twist to show him that he is abusing the system and exposing too many high-standing people. We learned that on July 7, 2 new people, a policeman and an ex-boxer converted to security, are put under examination as part of this first investigation, suspected of having covered up the rape case. This brings to 8 the number of people indicted in this investigation. Several police officers or ex-police officers, a former GIGN, and ex-boxer. In Pedoland, whoever initiates you makes it seem easy, that you are above the law and you are a king. This is why very often when the networks become denser and you start doing anything, you are let go and you are given the impression that you are a monster. It is the monsters of Pedoland who released Jacques Boutier and who gradually leak compromising information about him and direct the media and justice against him. So, there you go. I'm talking to all the Jacques Boutier, all the Websteins, all the Dutroux, and all the Epsteins all over the world. The Pedoland bosses will eventually let you go. They are going to throw the word at you because to them you are nothing. They will never get dirty for you. They are not in business. They are not visible, but you are. They use your influence to do dirty things thanks to you. They hold you captive with audio and video recordings and give you the carrot when it is a snake. They will let you down. And as I talk about it, on June 12, 2022, in connection with the previous charges, the Paris prosecutor's office is opening a new investigation into possible abuse of corporate assets, concealment, and money laundering in an organized gang. In particular, he wants to check whether Jacques Boutier used the funds of his company to finance his criminal activities, such as renting apartments in which he lodged the young woman who accused him of rape. But where did they get this idea? Weird, isn't it? On June 29, the Paris Public Prosecutor's Office opens a new investigation entrusted to the Brigade for the Repression Against Personal Delinquencies, BRDP, following the filing of 2 complaints denouncing sexual harassment on May 28 and 30. The Vlavi Group announced on June 22, 2022, that it had launched an audit following the 4 complaints filed, which initially involved 12 people from the company, but probably more. On June 24, 2022, his lawyer deplored the media treatment of the file and the misleading reports, but I say to his lawyer that it is a blow prepared in advance. Everyone loses in Pedoland except the deep initiators, the Rothschilds.
Marcel Vervlosen avait envoyé en recommandé le CD-ROM au président de la République, Jacques Chirac, et Jacques Chirac, très logiquement, normalement, il avait renvoyé le CD-ROM, il l'avait fait suivre Place Vendôme à la Chancellerie. Et c'était en 99, un an avant que je sorte mon enquête.
Donc la justice française est parfaitement au courant de l'existence du CD-ROM, le possède et s'est assis dessus et n'en a rien fait.
Voilà, et tout le monde fait semblant de découvrir.
Grand reporter à France 3, Pascal Justice approche la garde des Sceaux pour la mettre devant le fait accompli.
Mon caméraman va la filmer, je vais lui dire « Vous avez prétendu que vous n'aviez pas ces documents, que vous vouliez les voir. Or, vous les avez depuis un an. Regardez, ce document le prouve. » Et évidemment, à ce moment-là, elle est complètement surprise et elle nie, et elle va faire son meeting. J'attends tranquillement. Son service de presse va venir me contacter le midi. il va y avoir des coups de fil avec la chancellerie et nous allons faire une interview tout de suite après, genre il faut que toute la vérité soit dite. Bien sûr que qu'est-ce que vont dire les autorités autres qu'on veut que toute la vérité soit faite sur des faits qui horripilent tant le public.
L'Humanité, plus le Figaro, c'est inhabituel, et ça commence à faire beaucoup. Alors le 12 avril 2000, quelques jours après la publication du Figaro, la ministre de la Justice, Elisabeth Guigou, intervient en direct dans le journal télévisé de France 3.
La police et la justice ne peuvent rien faire puisque ce sont des photos de visage. Ce qu'il faut, c'est faire un travail très minutieux pour confronter ces photos aux images pornographiques qui sont dans le CD-ROM que nous ne disposons pas, y compris aux journalistes qui ont des informations, qui peuvent posséder ce CD-ROM, qui peuvent posséder d'autres fichiers de photos, de les communiquer à la justice.
Quand on a une photo de pédopornographie sous les yeux, on est en train de voir un enfant qui se fait violer ou torturer par un adulte. Et au-delà de l'aspect image, on devrait se dire mais il faut absolument retrouver cet enfant pour le tirer de là. Il faut absolument qu'on trouve les adultes qui sont derrière ça, parce que ce sont des gens qui sont dangereux. Parce que là, on voit une victime, et puis parce qu'il y en a d'autres. Parce qu'ils font un commerce qui est absolument horrible.
La justice a pourtant les moyens d'enquêter. Les journalistes ont remis, outre le CD-ROM, des agendas, des listings d'adresses liés au réseau de Gerrit Ulrich. On y trouve des dizaines de contacts personnels, des références bancaires, des comptes joints en France, en Hollande, en Belgique, dans de nombreux pays de l'Est, en Grande-Bretagne, aux États-Unis et même à la Banque mondiale.
Et j'apprendrai en lisant des articles dans la presse parisienne, c'est-à-dire que les confrères ont été informés par le parquet que ces carnets d'adresses ne contenaient que des adresses de boulangers, de coiffeurs, enfin des adresses sans intérêt.
Sans intérêt pour la justice. Qu'elle nous explique qu'elle n'a pas les moyens de remonter ses pistes, ce serait préoccupant mais crédible. Mais affirmer que ces documents sont sans intérêt confine à la désinformation. Par ailleurs, ce qu'on n'avait pas prévu au ministère, c'est que dès la publication de l'enquête, le téléphone n'arrêtait pas de sonner au standard de l'Humanité. Les journalistes ont reçu des centaines de personnes qui souhaitaient venir consulter le fichier.
Évidemment, je n'ai pas compté, je ne m'attendais pas à un tel raz-de-marée, mais c'est peut-être 150, 200 personnes qui sont venues au journal pour voir le fichier parce qu'ils avaient des craintes, parce que il y en a qui sont venus des États-Unis, de Floride. Brusquement, on voyait à quel point il y avait une réelle inquiétude et que ça concernait énormément de monde. Donc à la fois, on espérait des reconnaissances et en même temps, on les redoutait parce que faut mesurer ce que c'est hein, quand vous avez des parents, une mère qui brusquement met son doigt sur une photo en disant « c'est mon fils ». Voilà.